Welcome, everybody. This is Books Cafe presented by free-ebooks.net. I'm your host, Scott Patton. I've got an amazing guest today. I'm so excited to bring her on. But before we do, I just want to tell you a little bit about free-ebooks, our sponsor. So here it is. Oh, let's go a little bit bigger. We've got thousands and thousands of free ebooks for you. And our purpose is to support readers and to support authors. Oftentimes, authors, their biggest challenge is marketing their book, getting their book in front of the ideal reader, the people that want to read their types of books, whether it's nonfiction or fiction. And that's our job. If you've got a book and you're willing to give it away free, we have over 5 million members. We get over 100 and something thousand people viewing the site every day. If your book is awesome, which I know it is, you could be one of our featured books. As you can see, we have lots of categories. In fact, one of the things that surprised me when I first got involved was the fact that we actually have textbooks for schools and universities. So if you're into education, if you're into science fiction, horror, romance, we've got something for everybody. And we've got a list of best books. We've got our great books list. And we also have our latest arrivals on the main page and our latest audiobooks. So if you're watching us, you want to read, we've got lots of books. You can get 5 free ebooks every month. And you can also join our VIP and get unlimited downloads of the books and audiobooks. So with that, I'm just going to... I've been doing this like forever, and you would think that I wouldn't have any problem knowing what button to push. but just then I was like, what button do I push? So today's guest is in Texas right now. I happen to be in Medellin, Colombia, and we were talking a little bit about some of our travels around the world. She's been to the UK and a few other places. I would definitely want to talk about that. But right now she's settled in Texas. And she's been around the world, and her passion is writing about vampire. Well, her passion is writing, and she writes about vampires and people with different supernatural abilities. And growing up in Michigan and spending time in several parts of the world has provided her with unique perspectives and innumerable opportunities for storytelling. She's married, she's got a wonderful family, and they test her knowledge of life and push her limits. And of caffeine made daily. So push her limits of caffeine intake daily. She's a bit of a dabbler and jumps headfirst into any endeavor, which is probably the main reason that she's on the show today. So with that, welcome, Kristy. Oh, just a sec. There we go.
There we go. Hello.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your travels. Like, you told me you'd been in the UK because we were talking about weather there and weather in Vancouver and weather in Texas. But what are some of the other places you've been?
Well, I've lived on 3 different continents. So I'm from Michigan. I've lived in Chicago and New York. I've lived in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and my son was born there. That's in the United Arab Emirates. It's in the Middle East. And then we moved to the UK. We were there for 5 years, and my daughter was born there. When we lived in the UAE, we had the opportunity to travel kind of far east quite a bit. So I got to explore Singapore and Hong Kong and Malaysia, and we did a little bit of local travel when we were living there too. We went to Oman. That was a lot of fun, actually, and explored the UAE itself a lot. So, and a little bit in Europe as well. So I've kind of dabbled here and there. I've never been to South America though. So that's somewhere I'd like to go.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I've been as close as Jordan. That's the closest I've been, and I wanted to get over to Dubai and the other countries in the Gulf there, but I ended up going south to Kenya instead.
Okay, right.
Oh, wow. So tell us a little bit about how you got started writing.
Sure. I guess like my bio says, I am a bit of a dabbler, but I've always kind of been drawn to writing, though never really thought it was something I could pursue professionally. One day, a friend of mine suggested I write uh, an essay for an anthology, and I did, and I was accepted into it, and that kind of gave me some confidence that maybe somebody wants to read what I have to say. So I've done a little bit
Right.
of magazine work and stuff like that. But what I really enjoy is writing fiction and trying to come up with characters that resonate with people, characters that are fun and funny, um, and a book that might provide a bit of an escape. I think, especially these last several years, really, I think people have
For
needed,
sure.
an opportunity to kind of not live their own lives for a little bit. Um, so that's kind of that's the impetus to it, I guess. That's where it started.
You have a fan.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
Hey, Dan. Welcome to the show. Awesome. Well, let me show everybody. You've got two books, and let's show everybody both those books. I think Turning Point is the one we're going to talk a little bit more about.
Yeah.
Knocked Up Abroad, when I saw that at first, I didn't quite understand, but now I do.
That's the anthology that I mentioned. That's I'm in that book. That's not my book, but I've got an essay in that book.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Wonderful. So let's take a look at Turning Point.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about what the book is about.
Sure. The book is it's kind of got a bit of an ensemble cast, I guess. But the main story is a young woman discovers something about her past, and she has to deal with it. And we kind of explore what happens, what leads up to that moment. There's a defining moment in her mother's life, and we discover kind of what led up to that and what's happened in the years since. And then we come across the woman when she's an adult, and she's just kind of literally slammed by all of this information and has to figure it out. And of course, the information is that there are vampires involved, and this is a woman who's and she and her mother both are very sensible people. They don't expect that to be anything that's real, but come to find out it is. And there's a lot more to her family history. The main character, her name is Alice. There's a lot more to Alice's family history than she knew. And so once she's kind of face to face with some of her biological past, I guess she needs to, she comes to a turning point. That's kind of the point. She needs to decide how is she going to proceed? What is she going to do?
Cool. And one of our audience asked, "Is this a real story?" No, it's a fiction story, right?
Yeah. It's about vampires, not psychic vampires, but the ones that like to drink blood and all that stuff. So it's a fun, science fiction, fantasy, urban fantasy, paranormal. Any of those adjectives you'd like to use, that's what it is.
And that's kind of in my favorite genres, the science fiction. I don't know about like the not the horror that's full of but the suspense and everything else is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And cool. It's an interesting. One of the things that you said that I find really fascinating is when you have this worldview and then something happens to shatter it, and then how do you or the protagonist or the characters in the story or in real life, how do we deal with this this change where something that you thought was, this was my life, and then it just totally gets turned upside down.
Yeah.
And you reminded me of a friend of mine who was in his mid 50s. He's living in Vancouver, and about an hour flight away, 2 hour flight away is Edmonton, where his sister lives. And she calls him up one day and she says, don't ask any questions. Get on the next flight to Edmonton. And he's like, what?
Okay.
So he gets on the flight. He gets to her apartment. She lets him in. She says, sit down. And he sits down. And then she says, I want to introduce you to somebody. And this lady walks in and he looks at her and he goes, you're my sister. So he had a sister that he didn't know his whole life.
Wow.
And so what had happened was the two sisters who never knew each other before were walking down the street in Edmonton. They passed each other, stopped, turned around and looked at each other and said, oh my God, like you've got to be, like the family resemblance was almost like twins, I guess.
Wow. Wow.
And then they talked about each other and they talked with each other. They were sisters. So then she got her brother there. And then they went and talked to mom because like, where did this person come from?
What's going on?
But it turned out that mom and dad he got mom pregnant in the 50s when it was not a good, was not a lot, not a good thing, culturally.
Sure.
And not that it wasn't a good thing, but it was like tisk tisk. So they put her up for adoption. Wow. And they never told their children that there was another sister out there. And so I can't think of a much bigger disruption of someone's life than that. And of course they were happy they were happy to meet her and everything else. It was a wonderful surprise. So first thing I did when I heard that story was I went home to my mom and dad and asked them if there was anything they wanted to tell me.
Just lay it all out there. Just let me know.
That's right.
Wow.
We don't want to have any secrets.
Oh my goodness.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
So who's the favorite character that you've created so far?
Right. So it's funny because, I set out, my original intent was to write a vampire story where the human female was strong. Because there's a lot of vampire stories where the human female starts off strong and then, falls for the psychic manipulation of the male vampire. I mean, there's a lot of other ways the story is told, but that's a pretty common one. And I wanted a strong female character, so I developed Alice and, have explored her history and I'm exploring her future. And one of the things I needed was a bad guy. I needed a guy that would somehow come in and take her away. I needed that function. And so I created a character named Leo. And honestly, he was just kind of meant to be a bit of a throwaway, a bit of just a thug comes in, he bullies her around, he takes her, and then we're done with him. But actually, I've grown to really adore him. He's funny. He is a bit of a brute. He is a vampire. His human history is a bit sordid and makes him kind of informs the way that he engages with people, particularly humans. He doesn't really care for them. His job is to be the muscle and the guy that puts fear into them. So that's what he does. He comes in and he scares them and washes his hands of it and goes on to the next one. But over the course of writing him, I discovered that he's actually he's got some endearing qualities, and he actually is a little more human than he likes to let on. So I kind of ended up developing him, and he kind of has a sidekick, and they provide the comic relief in the story. So that's how that grew out of that. And he's actually been a lot of fun to write because he has grown in my mind and in my heart, really, from just this guy that was going to have one scene to now he's showing up in the second book and probably in future books as well. And I'm not entirely certain I'm still on because I don't see Scott. Oh, there he is. Very good. Okay.
I lost my connection for a second. I don't know
Uh-oh.
if hopefully you didn't feel abandoned.
Well, I just kept talking, so
Good.
hopefully that was okay.
Yay, that's what you're supposed to do. So I missed the last part of what you said, but he was a fascinating character that turned into maybe more layered and nuanced than you originally thought.
That's right. That's right. He was just supposed to be, one and done, one scene and then he's out. And actually, I really enjoy him and his connection to Alice. And he's certainly going to be. He's in the second book. He'll probably be in future books as well. So
Cool. And so, do you find oftentimes your characters sort of write themselves?
yeah, I had an idea of especially for this book. This book took me a long time to write. I had never written an entire book before. I just decided I was going to, and then I got about 15,000 words in and thought, oh my goodness, I can do this. I can finish this. So I just kept writing. So I didn't have a plan at all. And um, not much of a plan. I had a general direction, but there was nothing written down, other than what I explored as I was exploring it. But so then as I was writing, the characters kind of took the book in a different direction. It didn't really end up exactly where I thought it was going to end up. It's similar enough. So the same idea is still there, but certainly they have their own ideas. And also, as an author, you have to remember that they're not you, right? So you have to write who they are and be true to how they would respond to a scene. And I found myself quite often physically going through a scene. I would try and write something out, and I would just stand up and kind of, move around the room and pick things up if they were picking things up, and sit down if they were sitting down, and how would one respond in that situation, whatever the given situation was, and then making sure that I understood how they would respond in particular, with their history and who they are. And hopefully I'm getting better at that as I go forward as well. It's a learned skill, I think, to be able to put your characters at the center of what you're writing and make sure you're staying true to who they are. Can't hear you.
That's really an awesome strategy for writing the book, or process that you go through to actually go up and move and learn, and not learn, but put yourself into the role. I think that's a great tip for our audience.
Yeah, I mean, that was, to me, especially because when you're writing any sort of physical scene, I find when I read books, I find sometimes I get a little bit lost, especially if there's a lot of action going on and the author is describing what's happening. I have to focus quite a bit to make sure I'm following who's doing what to whom and when. And so I tried to make sure, you want to use detail, but you can't get too detailed because then it loses people. So it's hard to come up with the right balance of how much to put in and how much to leave to their imagination as well. But I think you do want to guide the reader through what you're seeing so that they can come out the other end where you are,
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's been taking up your time, you mentioned to me, was marketing your book. And I think all authors have that problem. And it's one of the reasons why free-ebooks.net is around, is to help you create an audience, to contribute to your audience. What are some of the things that you found effective in the marketing of your book?
My goodness. I wish I knew. I feel like, well, photos, you need to include photos of everything. And I found actually that more realistic photos, or photos with people in them, people engage more with that. I've also discovered that when I try to manufacture something, it doesn't really resonate. But when I just put my heart out there more, even through the eyes of my character, when my heart is put in front of other people, they tend to um, engage with that more and respond with that more. So that, I think, being true to yourself and being true to who your characters are and who your, I don't know, who what your heart has to say. I think even in a completely fictional environment, I think people can see through what's manufactured and what's real. So for me, being more genuine has been more fruitful.
I think you're absolutely right. You know, authenticity is so important, and authentic characters, authentic authors, that's what connects heart to heart with your audience.
That's true.
And
yeah.
before I forget, I want to put up, here's the link to your book, and the link is in the comments over wherever they happen to be. So, you know, I really want to encourage you to go over and support Kristy and get her book and read it, leave a review.
Yeah, that would be great. That's helpful.
So important to leave 5-star reviews.
Yes, please.
So, Kristy, is there we're coming kind of to the end of our time. Sure. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing everything that you've shared. It's been wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to, either a last point about your book? Well, actually, you said that you're working on your second book, and your second book is a sequel, from what I gathered.
Yes. Yes.
So, first of all, when you publish it and you're done, come back on the show and let us know.
Do. Absolutely.
And is there anything that, like, a lot of the people that are in our author group are struggling authors, in that either they have a book and they can't get anybody to read it, or they can't write. I don't mean they can't write, but you know, they can't get it out, get going. So my question for you today is, if you've got like that infamous writer's block, do you have a way to get around it? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, I feel like I have interviewees block at the moment. No, I think, you know, everybody experiences writer's block in a different way. I think for me, I struggle to generate my creative side kind of struggles when I have outside forces pulling me in different directions. If I have the opportunity to kind of level myself and bring it down, I can get back into what I was doing. I often reread. I reread what I've written a lot. Maybe that's a little narcissistic of me because I like to read the words that I wrote. I don't know, but it helps recenter me and get me back into thinking in that world. And then usually what I'll do is just open up the document and write a couple of words. And then suddenly those words start to tumble into more words. But I do think mental clutter really disturbs the creative process, in my opinion, in my experience. My brain is like a computer screen with like 17 different tabs open all the time anyway.
Right.
But I need to close some of the tabs so that I can put more effort into the writing one.
I think that's a really, really important tip, because you're right. Like, we have things, shiny objects pulling us, you know, squirrel, as some of my friends like to say. And it's so easy to just get drawn into someone else's drama, your friends and families, or TV, or what's going on in the world, and all those things get out. What I was seeing in my mind's eye when you were talking was a radio that has someone talking that you want to hear, but the static is so bad that you almost can't hear them at all. And so you have to get that radio attuned so the station is clear.
Yes.
And that means getting rid of all the staticky stuff in your life. So
yeah, that's a good analogy. I mean, it does seem a lot like that, because I know that they're there and they want to talk, but it's sometimes hard to hear.
well, you had someone that just thought that was awesome. So thank you.
Yay, thank you.
Thank you for everybody that's been joining us. Kristy, thank you so much for your time today. I just want to bring up your URL. You've got a blog and website. So if you everybody go to her site.
Yes, please. I would appreciate that very much. Anytime you can support an independent author, you're actually supporting a human being who's put their heart and soul and lots of hours into their creative process. So it's always greatly appreciated.
That's a beautiful sentiment and a beautiful way to end this show. So thank you so much for that. We have one last comment from Stan. I like how you explain your brain into 17 different tabs at times. I really lack content in my mind. Thank you, Stan.
Yes.
Stan is my friend from Kenya.
Oh, hi. Hi, Stan. Thank you.
So thanks for joining us, Stan. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Really appreciate having you on the show. And make sure that you get Kristy's book and go to her website, give them 5 stars, support her. That's what Free-eBooks is all about, is supporting our authors and supporting our readers by bringing you great authors and great stories. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for the time. Thanks, Scott.